A lot of times companies would love to have the robust sales enablement tech stack to make their reps more productive and more efficient, but you may not have the budget to bring all those licenses in. Well, you get the benefit of having that tech stack already embedded with your outsourced partner.
Welcome to the Modern Selling Podcast, where we help the entire sales community to create more sales conversations with today's modern buyer. This includes anyone from entrepreneurs and business owners to sales reps and sales leaders. Each episode, you will hear from sales leaders, practitioners, and influencers to help you find, engage, connect, and nurture your relationships with your buyers. I'm Mario Martinez Jr., your host, and you're now listening to this episode sponsored by
Selling
Zant
Podcast,
the enterprise leader in sales engagement. Zant has authored the definitive guide to sales cadence. Get your copy at salescadenceguide.com. That's salescadenceguide.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's episode of the Modern Selling Podcast. And I got to tell you, it is a first, a brand new, very first, never been done before. We are not only talking to the man, the myth, and the legend himself, my friend, Vice President of Ominchannel Sales, Ben Sims from MarketSource, but he is my first victim and the very first time in our history in 3 years of this podcast that I've ever broadcasted live. This podcast that I'm broadcasting live. Ben, say hello to everyone, man.
Well, hello, Facebook. Hello, everybody else. Maybe all 11 of my Facebook followers are on. I hope you have a lot more than that. But anyways, this is fun. So thanks for having me, Mario.
You bet. Well, all the marketers and sales people right now are being pulled into this particular session right now. And for all of you who will end up hearing this on the actual podcast, I woke up and I said, you know what? I'm going to do something different. I'm going to shake it up. And that's where I said to Ben, Ben, do you mind going live? Like, look, you can't bleep out bloopers, man. So once we go live, that's it. It's going live. And but we can bleep out the bloopers in the actual podcast recording for all those who actually listen to the podcast.
Good, thank you. I'm not one of those that drop F-bombs, though. I think we're safe.
All right. Good. So listen, as we think about your role, you're with MarketSource. Do me a favor. I introduced you, obviously, as Ben Sims. We'll give you guys some details where you can find him at on LinkedIn at the end of the show. But I mentioned to you, he's over the commercial client services. What we are calling him as the Vice President of Omnichannel Sales with MarketSource. So do me a favor, Ben. I know you're a tried and true sales guy and leader for a very long time. Tell us a little bit about yourself, some background, and then we'll get into a very important question that I have for you about something special that I want to know. So take it away. Tell us a little about you and about MarketSource.
All right. I've been in MarketSource 5 years. We are a premier sales outsourcing organization. I oversee and am fortunate to have hundreds of salespeople and dozens of clients for B2B sales solutions. And what we do is we bring modern sales methodologies, including omni-channel approaches, for our B2B clients to sell more faster. So in a nutshell, I have the privilege of having amazing conversations every hour with our clients and with our sales teams to deliver B2B sales solutions.
I love it. And do me a favor, talk a little about your background, some of the different positions and roles that you had leading up to. And we're going to talk about this title, and then we're going to talk about the one thing that I really, really want to know.
Started my career in golf, actually. I'm a golf nut. You can see some flags behind me and all that. And early in my career, I actually got to work for Jack Nicklaus. So he
Did you really?
I did. He was starting up a golf equipment company, and I was a regional sales manager and did that for 6 years or so, and got to meet him every year. We would have some sales kickoffs that he would show up to, or we would bring clients in to meet with him and get golf lessons. So started my career in golf. Then I went into higher education for 5 years, running marketing and admissions for technical and healthcare colleges around the country. And then got back into B2B 5 years ago, as I said, with MarketSource. So if you add it all up, I've been a sales leader for well over 20 years, leading hundreds, if not thousands, of sales pros. And what I'm really passionate about is growing their careers. That's really what makes me put my socks on in the morning and gets me jazzed.
Nice. Okay. So the fact that you're here on the Modern Selling Podcast, you're a practitioner, which is what I love. So all those that are listening in right now to the podcast and live on Facebook at the same time, you're tried and true. And this is one of the things that as you know, I've had the podcast for 3 years. We're at almost 150 episodes. About one a week is what I do. And I know that you listen to the podcast as well. And what I love about the guests that we have on here is that it's actually information and thought leadership from the trenches. And that's really the big difference from instead of this theory and everybody arguing about what they feel and what they think, book authors. And this is like from the trenches. And that's what I love about having someone like yourself, Ben, on the call. Just do me a favor. I always ask this question and I get all kinds of interesting answers from as boring as I've got a couple of kids to as crazy as they had an extra appendage. So do me a favor, tell us something nobody would know about you, even if they were looking at your social profile.
I was born in Dodge City, Kansas, home of the OK Corral. And I think that water that my mom was drinking in that area has definitely gone into me. I tend to be a little bit of a renegade at times. I tend to be, kind of one of those outlaws out there. So I was born in Dodge City, Kansas, and not many people know that.
All right. So Dodge City does actually really exist. I thought it was only in the movies.
The real thing. It's in the middle of nowhere in western Kansas.
All right. Very good. So this Renegade thing, I really want to hear some things. What does my wife call me? She says that I'm always living on the edge and I'm always pushing the envelope. What is the term? I cannot remember what the term it is. But anyways, tell us something like that you've done that would prove it out. I mean, I did have somebody who told me, actually, the last episode with Chad Olds, and Chad got through telling us, and what he said was in college, he ran an illegal poker ring. I don't know if you heard that podcast yet, but that's how he paid his way through college. And then years later is when he told his parents what he was doing. So we had the first live confession on the Modern Selling Podcast. Did you got something juicy for us?
I don't have anything. There's probably some illegal stuff that happened in college that I don't need to share that all of us have been through. So it's probably
just so you know, whatever you say will be permanently recorded, put on Facebook and on the podcast.
Look, there's nothing too crazy. I like to have fun. I like to challenge myself in having fun and sometimes do stupid stuff. I don't necessarily regret it. It helps expand your mind, right? Expand horizons or introduce you to those new concepts or things. I've owned some side hustle businesses like School of Rock. So that was something that was a little crazy for a while. And so look, I'm not all that outrageous, but sometimes I make my wife give me the eye every now and then. Right.
All right. So you're not a real big bad outlaw. You're just a mini outlaw.
That's right. That's right. That's fair.
All right, good. Well, listen, MarketSource, excited to have you guys. You guys are very well known in terms of, organizations and large companies, medium-sized companies, looking to you guys to help with outsourcing their sales organization. And, we haven't had this topic yet, Ben, on the Modern Selling Podcast at all, ever. And as a direct result of your expertise and what you guys sell and what you deliver as well, I really wanted to take some time to talk about. I see folks that I'm connected to who publish their stats about the number of cold calls that they made and how they're using their dialer and creating a bazillion different, meetings. And I'm like, oh, Lord have mercy. Like, if I see another thing about how many calls that you've made for creating appointments, I'm just gonna go bananas, right? Do companies are they really outsourcing their sales organization? Is it cradle to grave? Is it just BDR level work? And then after you answer that question, why even outsource it at all?
So that's a great question about what type of outsourcing. Well, we'll start there because that's a really good thought. When most people think of outsourcing, first of all, I think they're like you. It conjures up images of offshore, low value call centers. And there may be some of those out there, but I also believe, and I know because I know some of my peers, there is white glove service to outsourcing as well. And so when it comes to outsourcing sales, I think there is a high value, protect your brand requirement of what we do. So to answer your question, most people think also of outsourcing sales as lead gen, right? Fill the funnel, pipeline, $100 a day, just get me a ton of leads, I'll convert them. But then there's also where a lot of my clients actually, to be specific, cling on to is also managing current accounts. And in this environment, that's even more important than ever, I would say, in that you got to reduce that churn or grow your revenue with your current customers. So you have that 80-20 rule where 80% of your accounts are only generating 20% of your revenue, those tail accounts. That certainly can be outsourced. Or customer success, as that's become more and more popular in the last few years, being proactive with your customers, that can be outsourced. So it depends on what your need is. And then there are specific niche outsourcers that do each of that. Now, why should people consider outsourcing today? And I do think it's a hot topic in this environment. In fact, Forbes recently had an article just a few weeks ago that said, listed the 5 top things you should consider for outsourcing to reduce your costs. And number 3 was sales. And why would that be? One, I don't think now, Mario, is the time for companies in this environment that we're in with COVID-19, or even when we come through the other end of it, to double down on how you've always been doing things, right?
Sure, yeah.
So if you hire a great outsourcing partner, they're going to do a deep dive with you into your problems, but more importantly, in today's environment, where are your opportunities? And if you outsource your strategies, part of your strategy, not the whole thing, you're going to acquire the capabilities to take advantage of that opportunity sooner. You can get speed to revenue sooner. And outsourced companies, also, these partners are narrowly focused. Whatever you hire those outsourced reps to do, that's all they're going to be doing. They're not distracted by the priorities of the day, or what is that department doing, or what are they not doing, or office gossip and rumors. They're narrowly focused on the mission you give them. Outsourcing companies in today's environment also, it's important to understand, we can help you scale up, which we've done. We've hired 500 reps one time in 6 weeks for one of our clients.
Wow.
But we can also scale down. We don't like to admit that, but outsourcing partners in a time like this, when you're looking at some OpEx changes, right? CFO has to make some tough decisions. It's a lot easier to do that with an outsourcing partner versus letting your own people go and going through HR bureaucracy. Sometimes it's easier to go up and down with an outsourcing partner. And ultimately, this is a cost optimization opportunity. I don't know if there's any CFOs that listen to your podcast, but if there are, what we've learned in these last few weeks is that your customers are willing to talk to you remotely. So all these field people are working from home, and they're having actually more conversations. And when we get through the other end of this, is there an opportunity when you're looking at your field teams who are visiting, 3-4 customers a day, let's be honest, dropping off donuts and checking in, and then you have to pay travel and expense for all that, shifting some of those dollars to an inside sales method to find new logos or manage your current customers can certainly optimize your sales costs and lower your cost of acquisition and cost of sales. So those are all the reasons I think people are looking at outsourcing today.
So I was taking notes here, and I captured 3 big ones that you said, and I'm going to actually say them in reverse order of the way you said it, because I wanted to actually touch on the third one the most. And that was cost optimization of your sales organization and reduce costs. Those are 2 reasons you gave. So cost optimization, and the example that you gave here was specifically around taking what we call a field sales organization, and that field sales organization, going from appointment to appointment, doing donuts and travel and expense and those types of things, right? And not truly having the opportunity to be able to sit behind a desk, be able to engage with customers the whole time, because they're out in the field, to moving that into an inside sales model and allowing them to be able to reduce some of those other costs at the same time, be able to increase the amount of engagement or volume or conversations that they're having, which also then goes to the reduction of cost as well, because you have the ability to be able to, as an outsourcing partner, put all that cost burden on your W-2. You're like, these are your W-2s as opposed to mine. And now I'm paying for a service as opposed to headcount, the cost for employees and training and all those other expenses and taxes that go along with it. So those are the first 2 things I got. And the third thing that you said was all around why outsource sales is about increasing sales. And it's because I think what I heard you say is with a more specific focus, you've got a sales team that is outsourced. They're focused on just this. They have blinders on. They don't care about the office gossip. They don't care about what's coming down. They don't care about all the things that are happening inside in your organization. And they've got those blinders on like a horse, right? And that can help with improving sales productivity and sales results. Is that right? Did I capture that correctly?
You nailed it. We're not here to replace or displace. We're here to augment or segment incrementally what you're already doing. Now, there is some cost savings there if you maybe make some changes from your field organization to more of an inside sales model, which today everybody's doing inside sales. So you're seeing the benefits. Like you said, you can have 10 conversations with customers instead of 3 or 4. But having said all that, yes, we'll take on the W-2, and you can move that line item to OpEx, to CapEx, wherever you need to make your financials look right. So yeah, there's certainly a cost benefit to outsourcing.
So if I'm going down this path, is this more like for the SaaS technology companies, or is this also for the transportation and logistic companies, right? The Great Danes of the world. Like what does that model look like in terms of who is the target audience and or target buyer? And I'm not trying to make this a commercial for MarketSource by any stretch. My audience knows this is not a pitch of any sort. And by the way, there's no partnership between Vengresso and MarketSource other than we're friends. But I'm truly interested in the concept of who it would be a target to say, I'm a sales leader. I'm listening into this Modern Selling podcast right now about outsourced sales. Who is a target to do this?
Well, you mentioned SaaS, and I would say SaaS is because they're looking to scale, right? And so anyone looking to scale certainly should consider outsourcing to augment what they're doing incrementally. If you were to look at the logos for us, the ones who have been around the longest, and again, this is going to be different by outsourcing partners, so I'm not here to pitch us either. It depends on the outsourcing partner. Think of the giant, behemoth legacy companies that have been around for decades or even 100 years. I have one client that's over 200 years old that have been doing things the same way for decades, right? They have agents, they have field model, and they know they want to be modern, but they're just too big to do it quickly. And they may not even have the culture to make the adjustments that they need to make. That's where you bring in, again, one of the big benefits of outsourced partners is that you acquire the skill sets and you acquire what you need, the capabilities, faster than you can do it yourself. Big, giant behemoth companies and companies that are ready to looking to scale. And then startups. And now this is where I'm not pitching. There's some startups that I think other niche outsourcing firms are a great fit for. So many industries would benefit. You definitely need to do your research on the right partner, though.
Interesting. Okay, so it could be cross-industry, and you've just got to be looking at it. 2 things, as you said. You're looking to scale, you're looking to grow, and you want to do that in a pretty fast way. And I think, if you think about especially some legacy industries, some of the industries that you referred to, they've got that, what I call the big old stodgy sales forces, right? And they still have a Rolodex. They still have that spinning ball, right?
That's right. That's right.
On their desk, and it's like, I don't need to call anybody. I don't need this LinkedIn thing. What's this?
That's right.
If you're one of those leaders that has that perspective, or you're one of those SaaS technology companies that's like, I need to scale. I need to go up, right? Here's the question. The question is how do you sell outsourcing internally?
As a sales leader, you have to match your corporate strategy. And the corporate strategies are all changing right now, right? Everybody's changing their strategies right now, I would hope. And then there has to be a sales manager that links up to that corporate strategy. So if there's a sales leader listening right now, you're going to need to sell this internally by just saying, look, I'm going to research some outsourced partners. And in order to suggest that, the reason I'm doing this, again, I'm going to repeat, is they could get us to execute this sales strategy faster to support the corporate strategy. So it's part of it is I have this sales strategy to support the new corporate strategy. I want to execute it faster. That's where an outsourcing company can come in. The other benefit is the tech stack. I think that outsourced companies, we have a robust tech stack. We do all the research. We make the investments for proof of concepts and pilots and all that. And a lot of times companies would love to have the robust sales enablement, sales tech stack to make their reps more productive and more efficient. but you may not have had time to do the research. You may not have the budget to bring all those licenses in. Well, you get the benefit of having that tech stack already embedded with your outsourced partner. So those are some of the things I would bring up internally on why you should even research outsourcing versus do it yourself. And do it yourself is our biggest competitor. So I think all companies should at least research outsourcing while investigating do it yourself.
Yeah, interesting. Do you remember what the average cost was for per rep on technology spent on a per rep basis in the industry, on a per sales rep basis?
I think we go for about $250 a month per rep, I think is what our benchmark is.
All right, so I can't do math, so I'm going to do that here, $250. Okay, that's so when I sat in the seat 4 years ago, when I was the VP of sales, the average cost in the marketplace was about $2,500 per rep in terms of technology, the tech stack, right?
Per year or per month?
Sorry, per year. Yeah, $2,500 per year. So you're $3,000. That's right on target. That's a little bit more, which what I would expect, 4 years down the road. But believe it or not, there are many sales organizations, when you talk about that tech stack, that first of all they have is a CRM. And that's it. That's all they got. And whatever that's going to cost you, $40-$50 a month ahead, that's all they've got. And the first question is like, where do I start? What do I do? Right. So if I'm in that position, should I be saying, where do I start? What do I do? Oh, let's go outsource. Or should I be looking at, all right, let me look at my business. How do I grow the business? How do I focus the business? And then I look at, what do I need to be able to accomplish that? And then I look at doing the math and I'm like, oh my God, I got to invest, let's just say I'm doing $50 a month, right? I got to invest another $250 more per head. Shoot, I don't have that type of money. Plus, on top of that, I need to actually go and hire the individual. The onboarding process is probably at least 6 months to be able to get them up and running successfully. And usually, I forget what the stat is, but something like $50,000 is invested in an individual when you go to onboard them, plus your training pay, and all those types of things, right? So now I put my business case together, and it's a financial discussion at that point. And I turn around and I go look at this from an outsourced perspective. Now I can do a comparative analysis. If I, as a sales leader, Ben, walk into my CFO's office and say, Mr. and Mrs. CFO, this is what I was thinking of doing to be able to support and grow our business. This is how much I think is going to probably cost us to do it internally. I've done some benchmarks. This is what it looks like it'll cost me if I do an outsourced sales model. What do you think? Which direction should I really consider? If you get the CFO's rubber stamp saying, well, I mean, come on, let's take a look at this. The numbers don't lie. You should go pursue this if it's a valid option and if it's something that should work. If you get the financial discussion on your side, is that one of the first places that I should start as a leader is on the financial side? Or is it more of a business discussion with the CEO or whoever it might be?
I think it's both. I think you have to have the business discussion because part of that business discussion, the other part of the cost equation of that is if it's going to take me this long and I have a 3-month or 9-month sales cycle to close deals, I'm not looking at revenue for 18 months on this new strategy that we have. So if we're going to go from field sales to inside sales and do everything you just described, Mario, it's going to take a very long time before you actually see revenue. So not only is it a cost play, but it's a speed to revenue play. Now, ultimately, then let's also look at the cost. Let me add to your cost conversation because there's another piece that I don't think enough sales leaders look at. And that is, what is your true cost per sale? So look at your current sales team, right? And add up everything you just described, add up their salaries and their commissions, their benefits, healthcare, your payroll taxes, your equipment that they need, licenses, like you said, marketing. And what is your true fully baked cost per sale? Most sales leaders, I don't think, really know that answer. They don't do enough digging in. And so you take your cost per sale, then what is your lifetime value of every customer you have? So don't just look at your ARR. How long is your average customer? What's your churn look like? And what's your average length of customer? And roll that revenue out during the lifetime value. Your cost, your CAC, with lifetime value, when you look at an outsourcer, should be equal or less than it would be doing it yourself. So there's another cost play that you need to be bringing up with both the business and the CFO at the same time. So it's speed to revenue on the business side, and then improving your CAC to lifetime value on the CFO side.
Now, I think there's some other intrinsic benefits to this as well. And that is, we talk about the modern selling approach, right? If I'm going to be standing up my own sales organization, I need to have an enablement person helping to write with messaging, the content that's involved with the marketing organization. I need to have the tools and technology. I need to be that really forward-thinking sales leader that is on the edge, and I've got that support team, or I'm going to go out and hire that support team and then wait the 90 days for them to get up and running and up to speed to help build an infrastructure and the process, the procedures and methodologies.
Yeah.
Or I could look at an outsourced sales model and say, you've got the cookie cutter approach, the template that you've done for thousands of customers or hundreds of customers or 10 customers or whatever the number is. And we're going to take what is we know is the gold standard and we're going to plug and play into our environment and we're going to modify and customize where the appropriate spots are. And now you're going to use your sales enablement team, your messaging team, your content team, your everything else that helps to go in and put a sales curriculum together or a sales plan together. And I'm going to now feed you my business, my information on my type of customer, my nuances of the business. So I don't have to think about all that other stuff. Like that's another huge value added piece, if I'm not mistaken, right?
You're spot on. So if your strength is R&D, let that be your strength, right? If your strength is your product, or if your strength is marketing, or if you have other strengths, let that be your strength. And like you just said, what's the turnkey solution to some of the sales opportunities that you're looking at? Because the sales outsourcers, obviously, we've been doing this a long time. And so we have business process engineers that are going to work with you on what is the stage-by-stage process of the buyer's journey. And let's be honest, you talked about modern sales. The big reason we have to make adjustments is because of the buyer, not because of the salespeople. It's the buyer that's changed. We've had to adjust to that. So what's the stages? What are the different KPIs you measure in each stage? What are the prescriptive metrics that get you to the outcomes? What are the tech tools that you need for all that? Yeah, but here's the other thing, Mario, because you started going there. You can learn from all this. So again, we're here to augment what you're already doing. You're going to learn from the outsourced partner on how to improve your current sales team as well. And the outsourced partner is going to learn from you. This only works great if there's true integration. If you're going to pit the outsourcing team against your own team, that never works. Those are the customers I have that churn. If there's true integration, that's really where you're going to take your company to the next level.
Interesting. I actually want to transition into talking about selecting the outsourcing partner and KPIs that you should manage them to. I think that's a really, really, really good topic because as I'm thinking about this, I have a little bit of experience. I've never personally outsourced my sales organization, but I got super close to it. Literally, I said, send me a contract. That's how close I got to it. And this was actually last year for Vingresso ourselves, right? For an outsourced sales model for a small, of course, on a smaller scale. But in all my 18 years of corporate sales experience and leadership, I never actually did anything like that. So I'm very curious to talk about some of the KPIs, how we select an outsourcing partner, what I should be thinking about. But before we do that,
okay,
what we're going to do is we're going to take this short commercial break. And we're going to listen to this very important message from our program sponsor.
Every sales rep executes a cadence when they reach out via email, phone, or social media to initiate a conversation with a potential prospect. The art of a cadence is determined based on a myriad of factors, fueled primarily by a sales rep's intuition regarding the company and contact that's being pursued. However, there are a lot of questions that aren't always clear when initiating a conversation and creating a successful cadence. Zant has authored The Definitive Guide to Sales Cadence. This ebook answers questions such as, how many times should the rep attempt to contact? How long should the rep wait between attempts? What methods are most effective, and more. Download your free copy of Definitive Guide to Sales Cadence at salescadenceguide.com. That's salescadenceguide.com. And now back to our program.
Now that we've come back from the break there, I was asked you a question about KPIs, how we select an outsourcing partner, and what KPIs should we manage them to or ask for. Talk a little bit about how we select it in terms of looking for the partner, and then how do I manage them?
There's really two types of KPIs, right? You have leading indicators and you have the lagging indicators. The leading indicators will vary by your industry. It'll vary by your mission. Are you more of a transactional sale? Do you have a longer sales cycle? What's your deal size? And what is the buyer's journey stage to stage? And each stage will have its own KPI. So it could be number of connects per rep per day, number of demos scheduled, demos completed, what's your conversion to demos completed, demo schedule, what's your close rate, all those. But ultimately, what I would think a founder like you, an owner like you, or a sales leader is going to, what's the outcome, right? What's the output? So there's several ways to look at that. You can just do what's my ROI. If I'm going to pay my outsourced partner X, what is Y? Do I want Y to be 2X, 3X, 5X, 10X? That's one way that we're looked at. The other is you could give us a book of accounts. You could give the outsourced partner a territory. Okay, I need year over year growth. So sometimes it's, I need you to have X% growth year over year. I'm going to give you that. That's your responsibility. And then sometimes it's just a raw, hey, I'm going to give you a revenue number to hit. You're either going to hit it and you're going to be a great partner or you're not. So those are the three common ways that we are KPI'd or the goals that we have to hit. And then ultimately, I'm going to refer back to cost of acquisition compared to your lifetime value of the customer. Your outsourced partner better be at or below what your current CAC is.
And what do you say most customers do? Are they looking for that 2x return, 1.5, 3x, 5x? Well, what is there an average out there that I should be looking at to benchmark?
Varies by industry. So let's go into this earlier conversation. You were talking about scale versus the legacy companies. So the scaling companies are going to be looking at, it depends. Again, is this a transactional low ticket value or a longer sales cycle high ticket value? Starting off 3x and ultimately you want to get to 7, 8, 9, 10x, I think, for an ROI. And then I have the legacy companies who've been around a long time with mature products, right? Sometimes they're just happy, for example, with double the US GDP. So if US GDP is 2.5%, 3%, our goal is 5%, because they're selling a product that's been around for decades. Sure. And they're at the maturity part of their growth curve. So it really depends on the product that we're selling. Is it a new product? If it's new, then I think you're going to want a very high ROI. If it's a mature product, then you got to be a little more realistic, and our legacy companies are.
Let's talk about culture for a second. Let's just pretend. I'm just going to throw out an example. I've got a 1,000-person sales organization. I bring on a service provider, solutions provider like MarketSource, and I do an outsource of 100 sales reps. So now I've got 1,100 sales reps. Is that 100-person group, are they part of my organization? Do I communicate with them the same way that I communicate with my other 1,000 sellers? Do I launch programs to them? Do I have one-on-ones, skip levels? How do I manage that team?
This is a great question. And you talked about culture. The reason this is a great question is, what is it? Peter Drucker from Harvard said, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah.
I find that to be true a lot of times when it comes to sales strategies. So one of the benefits of an outsourced partner is, let's say you are trying to transition to an inside sales team. You may think that you can, I could take some field reps and have them work from home and they'll figure it out. Or I'll just hire some inside sales reps and we'll be fine. And you're going to learn that your culture actually isn't the right culture in place to drive it. Now, having said that, inside sales is not what it was, as you know, Mario, 15 years ago. It's not someone walking around the hallway of a call center or walking around the cubes and beating people up to make $100 a day. That's not the culture that works today either. It's more about that white glove service. The outsourced partner has to represent your brand in a sophisticated way. Those are very important to our clients. Actually, brand protection and representing the brand is one of the most important things to our clients when we send surveys. So that white glove service is very important. How you manage it, which is the second part of your question got to, you got to have someone who is directly tied, attached to the outsourced partner, and at least have weekly communication with them. Where I think the customer of the outsourced partner really comes in is training, constantly providing that training, not just the initial training, but keep giving them marketing material and keep giving them more training on the product, on overcoming objections, on the persona, That's the integration I'm talking about, because once the reps get on the phone and start having conversation, now they have the practical experience. That initial launch training, they're only going to retain about 20% of what you taught that week. Go back 3 or 4 weeks later and give them some training now that they have that practical experience and have heard some objections, and then keep that training coming. And then finally, I would also say QBRs are a big part of our culture. And that's when we meet with the vice presidents and the executives, and we report on not just our last quarter, but let's have a strategic conversation about future state. Where can we pivot? Where can we be that strategic partner for you to give you ideas on how to improve not only MarketSource and the outsource partner, but even your own sales team? And where can you pivot? What other segments can you get into? And so that's when it really gels, is when the outsource partner and the client become a true strategic partnership to help the overall business. So I think that answers how you manage the customer and the outsource partner.
I don't know if I'm paraphrasing what you just said, but I want to paraphrase it this way and tell me if I'm right. It's okay to say I'm wrong. I've been wrong many times before. And that is, I should treat the outsource partner and its associated sales reps as if they were one of my own.
That's right.
Right? And if I'm probably going to set up some sort of group email distribution list. I'm going to think strategically about what I might send to that particular group. If there's a very important confidential information on the internal side, I probably won't send that to my outsourced partner. They don't need to know about that garbage, right? Or if there's something that's a brewing or changes in organizational structure, like that's probably not necessarily something they need to know about. But things related to sales performance, sales tracking. If I've got a culture where we're highly competitive and we've got leaderboards and stats and all this stuff, then I bring them into the mix, and they're seeing that type of those types of details as well to see how they measure up against the rest of the sales organization or against the program, the product, the service, whatever it is that they're representing. Those are the types of things that I should think about, that they're part of my team. Is that correct?
Yes. When you have sales meetings, you should be inviting your outsourced partner to your sales meetings. When you have sales kickoffs, you invite them to that. Sometimes we work in our client's building. Sometimes we actually have clients who have offices in our building. So yes, that true integration is where it works best.
Okay, gotcha. And if you think about what you just described, then what we're talking about is the real value is, in addition to everything we just discussed, it's also in the onboarding team from a company like MarketSource. It's your business process outsourcing experts, the consultants that are helping me to, quote, stand the program up and to maintain this program. And that's why I think about this. And one of the reasons why I love the concept so much about outsourcing sales until I brought them in internally. And then I realized I love managing sales teams, and I love being part of that. Myself. But as I got down this process, every question I asked was, well, what's the best practice? Like I would say, how do you guys do this? And they would say, blah, blah, blah. And what's the best practice? Well, we've got customers from all over, and we built our playbooks like this, and this is how we would approach the situation if you don't have a solution. And oftentimes, mature and non-mature sales organizations don't have a process, don't have a program, don't have a guide. Case in point, we just literally started standing up playbooks internally for our prospecting calls. Why? Because our founders used to do it for the last 3 years, and we know it like the back of our hand, and it's all in our head. But now we brought on 4 sales guys to the organization, and we're like, just follow us onto the sales calls. Watch what we do. Ask the questions that we ask. But we built the dang product. We built the dang company. Like, it's in our head, and now we have to pull this out. And I would have loved to have somebody there as an outsourced partner to have pulled this from my head, listened to those calls, and then built the playbooks. But no, we had to go out and literally build the playbooks. And oftentimes we did this in conjunction with our sales team. But that's the kind of the benefit that you guys bring to the table, is taking a lot of those things off our hands, but bringing the best practices from many customers that you guys service. Is that right?
That's right. So let me ask you, are your playbooks manual or digital?
All digital.
I applaud you, because I think not only do most companies not have playbooks, the ones that do are manual, and they're looked at once and then they collect dust. So having digital allows you to update it in real time. And I do walk around our floor, and I'll see reps actually looking at their digital playbooks on a regular basis. How do I overcome this objection? How do I enter this into Salesforce? You also brings up we have instructional designers, for example, that are hired to do these things. So the other thing is the tech stack that you benefit from. So you talked about the CRM earlier. So sales leaders are listening to this. I say this all the time. I'm sure you do too. Yeah, we have a CRM, but it's really just a book of records. So it's just entering the last conversation. The way we design our CRM is that it should be designed to tell the rep what to do next, when to do it, how to do it, and who to do it with. In fact, Zant, being one of the sponsor of this, is very good at this. And so you take your process and you build the process into the CRM. Too often I see the CRM is the process, and it needs to be the other way around. So you have some IT person that built the CRM and said, okay, here's your sales process. No, you take the sales process and give it to the IT guy and say, build this into the CRM so that my rep knows what to do next. Then you put some sales engagement platforms, omni-channel sales engagement platforms like SalesLoft, Zant, like you just mentioned, or Outreach. So now I'm telling my reps what to do next, when to do it with a cadence and with a playbook like Zant has. And then you also got to have training and development technology in there to evaluate your talent, and then have digital training in place for them to improve their skill sets. And then there's call coaching software such as Gong, Chorus, ExecVision, which is, I think, the very best training you can give, because their very next call is immediately improved. If you have a field team, you may want to use Map Anything, which was just bought by Salesforce, to optimize your coverage out in the field. So that's the other benefit. Again, we mentioned it before, but I want to get a little bit more specific. What are some of the tech benefits you get with an outsourced partner that you don't have today?
My sales team, when they listen to this, maybe they're watching on live Facebook right now. I hope that all of them understand and realize that we spend you want to know what our costs for tools are for our rep? We're going to come back to your title, by the way, the Ominchannel. I'm a big fan of the Ominchannel. That's all we preach is talking about Ominchannel.
That's right.
All we do is train and coach on skills development to social and for video. And we just got through adding this up, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't even realize what we do. But we spend on a per rep basis $5,300 a year per rep in tools and technology. And our tools are used and ingrained into our process and our methodology. And this is really, like, from just a cost perspective, it's really high. But if you think about it, we have our tool to be able to find our phone numbers, seamless.ai. We have our tools for being able to do sales coaching and recording our calls, which is Gong. That's our partner there. We have our tools, which is our HubSpot tool, in this case, in the CRM, but I've got great pricing on it, so I'm not leaving it. But we have everything that integrates into that as well. And then we have our playbooks, which is all part of the HubSpot system. And we've got all kinds of other really cool tools that we utilize in through the sales process for engagement and all those things. And so those things cost money. And every time you add on a new headcount, which is our chief sales officer just came to me and said, hey, we want to add on a new headcount. And I said, hold on, time out, hold on. Because one more item to our tech stack, and we've got to go up to the next level for 10 more licenses, right? So is this really optimized the right way, or do we need to re-optimize? And so that's something that sales leaders need to consider, is that with a partner, an outsourced partner, you've got that technology stack. You've got the Sales Navigator license. You've got the Gong. You've got the seamless.ai's or the Zoom infos or for searching up things. You've got the OneMobs or the Vidyards that are inside there. You've got all that technology already built in as a ready-made system. Now you just need to bring the content inside there and the skills training. And of course, MarketSource, in your guys' case, or the outsourcing partner, will train the sellers in these modern techniques, which is the next thing that many big, stodgy old sales organizations, they're like, where do I start next? I need some training. Well, let me teach you how to use social. Oh, I don't know how to use social media.
Actually, before we go there, can I help your sales guys out with you for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Everything that you just described in your tech stack and the money you're spending, here is the ROI. The average salesperson only spends about 35% of their time in actual sales activities. Sales activities are what I call green time, right?
Yep.
Sending an email, having a conversation, making a dial, whatever. That tech stack, if used properly, reduces the red time, the non-sales activities, the research. What you do is, if you do a workflow analysis of your reps' 40-hour week, what percentage of their time is in an actual sales activity? And if you can increase that from 35% to over 50%, Now you see the return on investment on that entire tech stack that you just mentioned. So yeah, you're spending more than most, but I bet you your reps are spending more time in the green time in sales activities than most organizations, and that's why it's worth it.
So I'll tell you the number. You want to know the number? I'm really proud of this. Over 70% of our time is spent on selling activities.
That's beautiful. That is very rare.
When we built this, Kurt and I, Kurt Shaver, our Chief Sales Officer, both of us are, former VPs of sales. From the moment that a contract is signed, literally DocuSign, from that moment that the customer signs it, the sales rep doesn't touch it at all. There's no administrative. I don't want a salesperson thinking about, well, who does the contract go to next? What form do I need to fill out for implementation? Is the CSM going to get it? Do I need to put the finance and the billing and put it into the invoicing? No. All of that is taken away from our salespeople, and I want you to focus on proposal development, strategy development. I want you to focus on getting that contract signed, and then let everything else take over from there. And I'm very adamant. And, I've even arm wrestled with our Chief Sales Officer. He wants the sales folks to sit on that first call for customer implementation. And I said, no. I want the customer success manager meeting with the salesperson for 15 minutes. And then I want the CSM, their job is they have to go and listen to the 4 calls on Gong that led up to the sale. I got it. I know what I need to do. So all the work is on the customer success team, not the salesperson. I want my sellers out there selling. Hallelujah. Give me a hallelujah. On that,
there's a virtual high five on that one. I love it.
Right there, baby. Before we get, we're running low on time here. Yeah. But I kept saying throughout this whole program, I want to talk about this Omnichannel sales title, right? That you've got VP of Omnichannel Sales. What the heck? What? You're the first VP that is calling themselves the Omnichannel Sales VP. What does it mean? Now, I know what it means, but tell us what it means.
I gave myself that title. My boss doesn't even know it yet, so I just did it. This is called Modern Sales Professional Podcast, right? Look, today's selling, and again, this is because the buyer has changed, not because we're just reacting to the buyer. The buyer is more digital today. They can do way more research. They are in control of the buying journey, and they are getting engaged later in the conversation with your seller. And so, again, we talk about legacy companies that aren't adapting. They're stuck in status quo. But today, you got to meet the buyer where they want you to meet them. So for you, I could send you an email. Mario, you may open that email. I may not. You'll get a cold call that you don't pick up, but I'll pick up. Or a LinkedIn direct message. This buyer will pick it up and this one won't. Social, so we just talked about social or video, just to increase engagement, increase your open rates on email and conversations. And then texting right now, we've really adopted texting for current customers, for our account management. We're seeing high increases on texting. So now I have an omni-channel approach because I want to have more conversations, and everyone communicates differently. Everyone has different preferences. So you got to meet that customer where they want you to meet them. Could be chat. Now, all of that needs to be integrated into your CRM, like you just talked about, so that all those conversations are captured so that your customer success manager can see the last conversation and the next conversation and when the next conversation. So today, that's just modern sales methodology because you have to adjust to the buyer. And it's not just about making 100 dials or sending 100 emails. You got to use it all today.
And that's what I love about what you're saying. And really, again, this is not a pitch, guys. I don't do pitches on my podcast, but the first company that I brought on for outsourced sales, the very first time was MarketSource. And it's because of this very reason, because many other folks are like, we're going to dial, we're going to use automated dialers. Like, come on, we got to be thinking about exactly what we preach from our perspective. Now, we're very laser myopically focused on the digital aspect, right? Teaching sellers how to engage in using video and email and soon to be text as well. So this is our focus, but the reality is that's not the only thing that buyers are using. That's not. And that's what I love about your positioning, Ben, is it's current times. And if a sales leader, they've heard me say this on 150 shows now, if you are focused on another cold call, you are probably proving to be obsolete right now. during this COVID-19 era. But you are proving yourself to be completely obsolete because you have not got to the point where you understand that it's an omni-channel approach. And with that said, that is what goes back to your tech stack conversation a few minutes ago. It is super important that if you're looking at building it or outsourcing, it doesn't matter, that you understand that you have the tools and technologies that allow you to email, phone, social, video, text, all under one platform. And thus, I think you guys are a Zant customer, right?
Yeah, we use Zant for some of our programs, absolutely.
Thus, one of the platforms like Zant, and then you apply the skills training. Of course, my shameless plug for Vingresso. One day, MarketSource is going to be one of our customers. We do the skills training on top of that to be able to help assist. And that's really important that you look at that, because you just can't scale it all on your own. And most sales organizations are going to go one tool at a time. You can only give training to your internal organization to say, hey, we're going to launch Navigator. We're going to launch Zoom Info. We're going to launch a Zant. You can only do that one at a time. Whereas you guys, you already have it. It's part of your DNA, and your sellers are already trained on that, and now you're implementing it. And that's why I think it has a better performance.
One add-on to that technology is that in today's world, right, we're all working remotely. We can monitor it. My sales leaders can monitor what my reps are doing. How many sales leaders are listening to this right now with not having a clue what their reps are doing on a day-to-day basis? I'm able to see reps log in, log out, have activity, non-activity. I'm able to see everything they're doing. We haven't missed a beat since we've gone remote during this environment. We're actually improving a lot of our results because we can monitor it as well as a sales leader.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's funny because our CMO, Bernie Borges, we got Gong, and he became a Gong addict. So admit if you're listening in, yeah, Bernie Borges is a Gong addict. And what he started doing was, as a chief marketing officer, is listening to all the sales calls. And that started producing, we're missing this, we're missing that. And the different answers from the different people, there's no consistency. So now that started producing that. And as he started producing content, it then turned around to, oh, shoot, I better listen to these calls too. And in the evenings, I'll listen to 1.5x the speed on a Gong call and listen, What are my sellers saying on these calls? Oh, interesting. They don't know where to find this tool. They don't know where to find this. So it really helps to bring that all together. And that's what makes not just a modern sales organization is not just about tools and technology, but it's about how you go about engaging and listening and selling to today's modern buyer. And that's super important. Ben, that's been a fantastic conversation. I love it, love it, love it. So if anybody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way? Are you on Twitter? Obviously not on Facebook, but on LinkedIn, like where do they go?
LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I am on Twitter. You can find me at EB Sims on Twitter. Ben Sims is easy to find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there as well.
And make sure when you connect with Ben, he's with MarketSource. When you look him up, please make sure you say, hey, I heard you on the Modern Selling Podcast. Send him a personalized connection message. It's SIMMS, and we will put his link for his LinkedIn profile into the show notes along with his Twitter handle as well. And Ben, before I let you go, last question I got for you. All-time favorite movie, what is it?
Caddyshack. I'm a golfer, and I still think it's the funniest movie of all time. I actually just watched it a week or two ago outside in our campfire in our backyard. We set the TV up outside. We got the campfire going, and I still laugh all through the whole movie all these years later.
Caddyshack. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Ben, thank you so much for joining me on the Modern Selling Podcast. And for all of you listening in right now, do not turn that dial because it's a very important message right now.
Zant, the enterprise leader in sales engagement, has authored The Definitive Guide to Sales Cadence. This ebook answers questions such as, how many times should the rep attempt to contact someone? How long should the rep wait between attempts? And many more. Download your free copy of The Definitive Guide to Sales Cadence at salescadenceguide.com. That's salescadenceguide.com. Thanks for listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Please do me a huge favor and give the Modern Selling Podcast a rating and review on iTunes. I would appreciate it. Also, if you want to easily find our show, just go to themodernsellingpodcast.com. Hey, since you'll be on our site, be sure to check out our Modern Marketing Engine podcast hosted by my co-founder and CMO, Bernie Borges. Thanks for listening in, and until the next episode, good selling.